Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you're tuning in from. Hello, 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 students. My name is Lewis. As you know, I'm here with the BoSTEM Initiative at United Way, Massachusetts Bay. If you're an educator tuning in, thank you so much for taking the time to do so. You tapped into a wonderful resource. Students, as you know, listening in today, we are here to discover the different STEM industries that are out there and how you can kind of pursue a career pathway. Here today, I have a group coming from Takeda, which is a pretty big company, and they're focusing in on the sciences, specifically health sciences. So what I want to do today is transition and kind of introduce our wonderful guest speakers to hear more about what's happening at Takeda. What are the different roles that are possible to kind of pursue at Takeda? And also discovering some of the identities, challenges, and even lessons learned that these special guests have to share with us today. So without further ado, please join me in welcoming our special guests, Cameron, Luz, Carla, Lisa, and Gina, all from Takeda's Impacto Employee Resource Group. Hello, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Can we do a round of introductions? We can start with Cameron, then we can go, Luz can be second. Then I also see Carla. We can finish off with Gina, and then Lisa can take us home.
Hi, I'm Cameron Dorr. I'm the Global EHS Systems Deployment Manager at Takeda. I grew up in South Texas and moved to the Boston area about a year and a half ago to work with Takeda. I have a background in environmental science. I then came into working mostly with computer systems and how to manage environmental health and safety data. And so that's currently what I'm doing with Takeda. I manage the projects that we use to make sure that we are reaching our goal of net zero at Takeda and also making sure that we keep our employees safe and healthy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Cameron. All right. Next, we have Luz.
Hi, everybody. My name is Luz Moreno. I'm originally from Colombia. I moved to the US about like 15 years ago, and I started my career here, and I wanted to choose something that it would be easier for me. Since English was my second language, I tried to use something with numbers because I thought numbers are the same all over the place. It's not as difficult for me. So I choose to go into accounting. I started in Takeda as an accountant, and then I moved to financial analyst. Right now, I'm working in financials, year end, all the profit and loss. So Takeda is a great place to work. You don't have to stay in one career, but you can look for another path that interests you. So
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Welcome, Luz. All right. Next, we have Carla, and followed by Carla, we have Gina.
Hi, everybody. My name is Carla Morales. I started with Takeda a year ago, but I'm originally from Puerto Rico and I moved last July to the States. So I've lived in Puerto Rico practically my whole life. My role here is I'm a principal scientist. So my background is in chemical engineering. I also have a master's in engineering management. So I work with the people who manufacture our products, our drugs. So I make sure that the manufacturing is done as it's supposed to, so that all our patients receive the same medicine all the time with the best quality they have.
Thank you, Carla, and hello, everybody. Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Gina Salcedo Lane. I am originally from Ecuador, moved to the US for college when I was 18, and I studied economics and statistics. Then after college, I got a master's in business analytics. So what I do all day in my role has to do with using technology to either find patterns in the data to make sure that Takeda's interactions with healthcare providers are ethical. There's many reasons why a pharmaceutical company might want to interact with healthcare providers that are very legitimate. So we want to just make sure that we stick to those. And the other piece is just helping other people use technology to find those insights, even if they don't have a programming background.
Awesome. Bring us home, Lisa.
Hello, my name is Lisa Santos, and I'm from Worcester, Massachusetts. My family is from Puerto Rico. I do plan to go there one day. I have not been there yet, but I am with Takeda for 4 years as a patient support manager. My role is mainly to support our patients with rare disease to make sure that they have access to the medication. So it is more of an administrative role, but a lot of moving parts with making sure that if there's any issues with insurance, there's a lot of stakeholders involved, collaboration. So we're just trying to make sure that the patient has access to the medication. My background is also, I have a business in management for undergrad, and then I have my master's in education with a focus on mental health counseling from Cambridge College. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone, for the warm introductions. Students, as you can see, we are in for a treat. We have multiple perspectives, we have multiple industries, lots of different backgrounds. So let's dive right in. All right, my first question to the group here is actually a general question. What makes you interesting? What makes your job interesting? And how do you find to motivate yourself on a day-to-day basis?
I think the idea of working with the environment and also making sure that everybody stays healthy and safety. Sometimes through data, you see the incidents that come through that people have faced and the hazards that they face in the workplace, and also the work that goes on trying to make sure that the products we develop is sustainable. So giving the researchers access to the information, like to Gina's point, if they might not have a background in sustainability and what tools that they utilize, what would make their products more sustainable, we give them the tools to help them make better decisions. And so knowing that and also supporting those projects, maybe not being directly involved, but supporting the people that make these decisions really keeps me motivated to help the planet and to help keep our employees safe.
Absolutely. It's super important. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, Lois, and my role, I think that the thing that makes me want to come to work every day is just solving problems. I think I'm a natural problem solver, and I believe every day you can learn something new, not only from your work, but from your colleagues, from all the interactions you have. So I think it's very important to know a lot about the science and the math, but you also have to have the soft skills of people interactions and kind of understanding others in this business.
So I understand that we have a group here representing multiple perspectives. And I just want to be clear here. We're talking about a pretty big company, right? Takeda Pharmaceuticals, as most folks know, sits in kind of like the health sciences industry. Can anyone here on the panel kind of share with us, what is the environment like at your workplace? I know that there are a lot of creative ways that folks are forming groups. Can you say more about this group and the environment that is at Takeda?
I can speak to that a little bit. One of the things that I think is really interesting about a pharmaceutical company is that, at least for me, when I was younger, I was like, okay, you're focused on making drugs, that's it. So you need to have a science background, that's the only thing that's relevant. But actually, as you thought, there's so many different things that need to happen. So any background can really fit in. And I think Takeda is a really welcoming environment for that. So I have personally found that there's a lot of welcoming diversity and also really talking about things like unconscious bias. I've seen a lot of our leaders actively talk about times when they were in a situation where they felt like, oh, maybe I'm being affected by some of this bias myself. I need to make sure that I'm careful with that. And we all have it. It's not perfect, but that awareness is really important, and the commitment and support to the different groups like Impacto, we're the Hispanic Employee Resource Group, but we're also encouraged to have allies. It's not just people from our background, but just anybody can join the group. So I think it's a really inclusive environment. I've always felt like I can voice my opinion regardless of who's in the room. And I'm very grateful for that.
And that's super important. Yeah, I love that. Luz, go ahead.
Yeah, I also want to add that because me coming from another country, it was very important to have diversity, to have like different people that look like you in different areas of Takeda. And Takeda is very welcoming. The culture emphasizes in diversity. So we have different TRGs like Gina just explained that kind of help us guide us through some of the channels. And it's a very welcome environment.
Awesome. That's honestly a wonderful thing to hear. I know that some students who might be listening are thinking about a large company and they're like, oh my gosh, I might just be like a number, or I might just be working in a big, large group and not really valued or feel seen. So I think what you're highlighting is super important. That employee resource group is a nice way to kind of build community. Thanks so much. All right, keeping the train moving forward. How did you come to realize the importance of your identity as it related to your career? And I know that this question might, sit more comfortably with folks who fit, right? I want to say fit the stereotype when thinking about STEM industries or someone who is a scientist. So I just want to kind of really talk about, identity and understanding what that is so our students can really understand the importance of identity in the workplace. But yeah, how did you come to realize the importance of your identity?
So I will say that I really didn't put a lot of effort into it. I think I've always been surrounded by my culture, right? So take advantage of the music, the conversations that go around the holidays, how you spend time with family. But when I started my career at Takeda as a patient support manager, a lot of it has to do with customer service, and our patients are all over. And sometimes actually we have like one patient in Puerto Rico, but within the United States, the Spanish language is growing. The population is growing. And so one of the things that I found as a barrier for me was that I couldn't even speak with my Spanish speaking patients in their native tongue. It's a lot harder to build relationships with your patients and get to have that dialogue that you have with other patients where you're just speaking English and that's their first language. And it's a lot easier to kind of talk about some of the challenges that they're experiencing and even clinical things just to kind of build that relationship. And I felt like, wow, it's never really been that obvious to me until I got into this role. I was like, what can I do to help make a change? How can I start taking a look at myself and say, how can I get to know myself more, my culture, my language, so that I can now add value to my company and the relationships that I'm building with the patients that I have. So in doing that, one of the things that I did was I started to reach out to other employees and figuring out who else was interested in learning Spanish or wanted to teach it. And so we ended up coming up with a program called Hablamos en Español, where we were able to tap into our own resources within Takeda. So our employees that speak Spanish, connecting them with other employees that want to learn Spanish so that we can have our own kind of community around building our language skills and then also adding value to the company. So it was a really great journey for myself to really take a step back and say, wow, my culture has value here. How can I make sure that I'm adding value and seeing how to help other people understand the value of that too?
Super important. Thank you so much, Lisa. Any other thoughts?
As I said earlier, I just moved last July, so I was living in Puerto Rico most of my life. So in Puerto Rico, what I did realize was very important was my gender, right? Because I'm a chemical engineer, most of the engineering is male dominated. And I could go to meetings that were all around the world. So we had meetings with Germany and people from the States, people in Puerto Rico, people in Europe, and I was the only woman there. So it was very obvious that I was the odd one out. I was the different person out. And I felt that I needed to make sure I had allies that were supportive of when I had ideas, that they would listen to my voice as well. I had very good colleagues, and it was very interesting to see how they would elevate my voice. And I think it's very important to note that if you're like senior in a management position, or if you're in a higher position, or if you're not the minority, then you can elevate others with your voice. When I came to the States, it was different. My identity changed. Me being a Hispanic was a greater identity changer or difference rather than my gender. And I did see I was maybe the only Hispanic in my group, and how I could make sure everybody knew about my culture. Everybody would say good morning because it's very, very different how we work in our culture, and how we communicate more emotionally, and not being seen as, oh, she's too passionate. Oh, this is because of this or that. But because it's culturally normal to be this way and not being taken, the wrong way. So it's very interesting that depending where you are, you might kind of shift in your focus of how you feel different. So it's not always going to be the same. You're not going to feel the same way. So for me, that was very interesting to see. And how also, like Lou said, you can change and do whatever you want whenever you want, to do it. With a company with Takeda, you can move to different roles. I'm very scientific and I never wanted a leadership position, but I am actually being given some leadership positions here as well. which is amazing because it lets you know that you're making an impact and that you're impacting other people as well.
So important. I think Carla too, it speaks to what Gina said earlier, that Takeda is such a welcoming place, like diversity is embraced. You guys are having different ways of building community and connecting. So all that makes total sense. Oh my goodness, thank you so much. All right. So understanding that identity can sometimes be really important or kind of take the forefront or change, as we're hearing with Carla's experience. Did you find yourself celebrating your identity? Did you have to kind of hide and assimilate or change the way that you presented yourself? Why or why not?
So growing up in the States and in South Texas, we've had a history of assimilation just by the history of Texas becoming part of the United States. And initially in my career, I did assimilate, and it was difficult because I'm very much Latina. I very much look Latina, and you can't really hide your identity. And so I started embracing it and, being more vocal about this is who I am, calling out the elephant in the room, if you would say, whenever you have mostly white male colleagues. And the more that I did that, the more comfortable I became, the less imposter syndrome I had, that I do belong at the table. The whole me belongs at the table, and I do have something to bring. And once you start working at a global scale, you realize that you have something. Like, I'm able to identify more with my Brazilian, with my Mexican, with my Spanish colleagues in ways that some of my other colleagues aren't able to, and also call out the unconscious bias that they may have about those programs because they don't understand the culture. And I think that once you accept your identity and bring it to the table, you become more of a strong contributor to the organization. And that is something that Takeda does make a point to point out, is to bring your whole self to work. And once I was able to do that, I think I was able to be better at my job.
I love that. That's awesome. Any other experiences? Did you celebrate or have to ignore or hide your identity?
I think for me, it's a little bit interesting because when people meet me, they never really assume that I'm Hispanic. They'll look at me and they're like, in fact, a lot of people will say, "Oh, you don't look it," once I say, which I know is really inappropriate, but people mean well. So I usually, for me, it is important for people to be aware, because not only am I Hispanic, but I'm also a foreigner. So sometimes there'll be a reference. I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about because I didn't grow up with that. And it's better if people know that it's like, oh, you're from a different country. Okay, like that makes sense, rather than like, were you living under a rock? Like, it's just, so having that reference is important, but it's kind of a tough thing. I don't wear a sign being like, here's where I'm from, and just in case you didn't notice. So for me, a lot of the time, the way we celebrate in my culture, or traveling to my home country of Ecuador, that's the way I bring up who I am. And it's kind of nice because New Year's is a great example. Like, we have a whole different kind of celebration in Latin America, I would say broadly. And that's something that I've brought up a couple times, and as a way to sort of highlight my identity. And for me, it's just been trying to bring up those positive aspects as partially to make sure people are aware where I fall in terms of diversity.
That's huge. It's a way of celebrating yourself and also the team, right? Like, you're contributing. I love that. That is so great. So it makes me think, ladies, I mean, I just want to, call out that you all work in the sciences. STEM oftentimes has a connotation that it's a really difficult, male-dominated industry. And here we are talking about a career in STEM with a group of Latinas. I mean, I'm really curious to hear more about like why you think it's important for students who look like you, who share your experience, to kind of pursue careers in these industries, and thinking about Takeda specifically, like why Takeda? Why should we have more Latinas?
So I think representation is very important. I think when you see somebody that looks like you, that is doing the things that we are doing in our industry, then you can see somebody and say, I can do it too. So I think it's very important for people not to put barriers to yourself. Oh, that's going to be too hard. Or, oh no, it's not for me because I don't see anybody that looks like me right now, you can be a pioneer. You can be the one that makes other people want to be in that job that you are. And I think we are all a proof of that. I really think that any type of career you want to go to, like for us, I love science, math, engineering, solving things. If that's what you like, go for it. You're the only one that can put a limit to where you can go, where you can be, and how high you can reach. But there are companies that are going to support your dreams. And Takeda is one of them. I didn't know I had other dreams until I reached Takeda. I thought this was it for me. I'm a very scientific in a very high position scientifically, working with manufacturers that manufacture for us. And for me, this was my dream. Oh, and I am in my dream job. But there's so much more I can give, and I wouldn't have known it if it wasn't by working here at Takeda.
And on a serious note of that, one of my colleagues pointed out to me that an example of needing diversity in these types of industries is that women are more likely to die in car accidents than men, because the test dummies that they use are based on men's weight and height. If women were at the table, before this observation was made, then women would have made sure to include test dummies that looked more like them and were their size. And I think that's a very serious and real world application of why it's important to have diversity at the table. And something that Takeda has been pushing also is diversity in clinical trials to help make sure that drugs are tailored to a diverse range of individuals. And so those are just real world facts of why it's important to have diversity in the workplace and in STEM to make sure our voices are heard.
I would say, just to add to that, is also, I think I bring it back to the language piece. Helping people understand the importance of reading a consent in their own language is so important. I think that, we take that, in a sense for granted because we already understand the language, we know English. And I think the reality is that even some of the terms that we're reading in English are still very advanced. And so can you imagine someone who this is not their first language reading all these medical terms in another language that's not their native tongue, how much harder it is to understand what it is that they're consenting to. And I think things just at that basic level is so important to give people that opportunity to be able to know what they're signing for and what the risks are and how to have that conversation comfortably without feeling like they have to just do it because that's just what's available.
I mean, what I'm taking from that is that students, Latinas, we need you. Please consider a career in STEM. There are many, many opportunities. And as we're seeing, Takeda is a wonderful example of how you can kind of flourish into your career pathway for sure. Thank you so much. All right, we're nearing the end of our session here, and I want to give a chance for everyone here to kind of, share a piece of their story. So everyone did do that, but, to kind of bring us home here, what advice would you give for students who are kind of considering a career in STEM, but they're like on the fence? They kind of sort of want to do it, but then they're like, I don't know if there's a place for me. What advice would you give those students? Is there something that they can do? Is there a resource that they should check out? Is there an experience that they should definitely try to have that might support them as they make a decision on a career pathway?
So I think my path was a little unorthodox in a sense. And the advice that my parents always gave me was to have a plan A and a plan B and a plan C and all the way through the alphabet to make sure that you succeed. And I initially wanted to go into pre-med, and that just didn't work out. My heart wasn't in it, and it showed in my academics. And I looked at ways on how I could still be involved in people's health and safety in a way that actually does trigger my passion and does make me want to study harder. And I found environmental science and I loved it. And it showed in my grades, like I could not put down the books. And so just because somebody tells you that you need to be a doctor or follow a certain path in STEM, it's all about you and your passion. And if it's just not speaking to you, that's okay. It's okay to take your plan A or plan B or plan C. So make sure that you follow your passion, and also don't rule out STEM. Another thing that was also told to me growing up is, oh, math and science just isn't our strong suit in this family. And despite that, I still wanted to pursue STEM. And so I did still take that route. So don't let anybody tell you what you're good at and what you're not good at. Get yourself out of your comfort zone.
It's really funny you say that, Cameron, because my dad also was just like, we're not math people, like, don't even try, like, just, we're not. And so when I went to college, I came in as an economics, political science person. And then I realized, like, the best political science class with the best professor, it was a good class, but I wasn't as excited as I was in my math classes. So that sort of encouraged me to make sure that I'm exploring that. And I remember the day I decided to, like, formally make that a part of my degree, I was like, I never thought I was going to do that. But it was just me getting in the way of myself because of something that I had been told. So that's, I think, highlighting what Cameron said. But then one other thing I would say is, personally, I think my soft skills are stronger than my, let's say, programming skills. That's just how it is. And there's so much room for that. There's so much interest in having people who have both the soft skills to communicate and the hard skills to program, do the math, be an engineer, whatever it is. So if you can be that translator, then all the more power to you, because it's rare to find that, and it's something that people do look for because it is important. So that would be my advice. If you're strong in one, still consider STEM, because it might actually be that intermediate point is what makes your career great.
I would also just add, do your research. I think there's a lot of companies like Takeda that have internships in the summer. And so maybe it's something that you're still trying to explore and you don't know yet. And it's okay if you don't know yet. I think many of us started in one area and moved on to another. I mean, I started doing in-home therapy and now patient support manager, and I still have transferable skills. I'm still working with people. I'm still helping them navigate resources. I'm still being empathetic and helping them understand what their options are. And so there's so many ways to still get in the field. And sometimes we hold ourselves in one position because we think there's only one way to be in it, but then you realize there's so many other avenues to get there. So, and I would also say find your clique. I think who you surround yourself with is so important at this stage, who you can get connected to. And so if you have the right people around you that have maybe similar interests or maybe just the same motivation to get focused and do something outside of maybe what the norm is in their community or within their own family, I would say just get linked up to the right people. And if you don't know who that is, keep asking and find out who you can talk to get you linked up to that person.
Yeah, I would add, don't sabotage yourself. Don't sabotage your future. Don't put a barrier or a limit to where you can go or what you can do. I had a very different experience. My family is very math savvy and science related. Yeah, my dad gave like pre-calculus and calculus class just because he liked math. You can do everything or anything you want to. You want to be a rocket scientist and you want to go to the moon, you are going to go to the moon if you want it enough, because you will work for it. And I think that's a key thing. You have to like it. You have to really enjoy it, because you're not going to spend so many hours doing either math problems or solving things or going into the STEM if you don't like it. And you don't know if you're like it if you don't try it. So you have to try different things to understand, oh, this is really what I don't mind this, because it just gives me so much satisfaction when I see that I was able to solve it, that I was able to do something with it. For me, it was that satisfaction of, oh, I found, the correct result. I found how to do something better and different. And that creativity, again, soft skills, I'm able to communicate with others my ideas, and we can work as a team. So it's not only the math, because we have a lot of spreadsheets and things that automate things for you. It's really understanding the concepts when you work rather than actually be doing the exercises, right? But you have to do the work to get to the job that you really like and you really enjoy. And if you're able to communicate effectively, if you're able to plan effectively, if you're able to know what priorities you have and you're able to prioritize, those things are so much more important sometimes than actually the job, because you don't do something for yourself, you do something for others when we work in this environment. Our patients are number one focus for us. So as long as they have the medicines that they need when they need them, I think that's where it all comes to. We're a service company, we serve our patients, and we want to make sure that they are healthy because we're serving them our medicines. So again, just think of it of where you want to be, and just don't be afraid of failure. You know, you're gonna take some classes, you're gonna fail them, you know, maybe that wasn't the path. Try other classes, you know, and then you're gonna find where you belong.
And I just want to say exactly the same. Don't be afraid of anything. Because when you start a career, you're like, I don't see people who look like me. I don't see people that sound like me. I'm not good at math. I'm not good at science. So you put yourself that barrier. But you just start working, and then you learn so much at work. Like, again, everything can be taught in school, and then you say like, oh no, this is too difficult. But at work, you learn other stuff, and then you can change your path. It's okay to make mistakes. It's okay to be afraid, but just keep trying. Like, we're proof of that. Just, you start with it, oh, I can't do this. I don't think I can do this. But you eventually find people along the way that will help you, find people that guides you. And that's it. Just don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of all the just science, math, and technology, because there's always help there.
Beautifully, beautifully said. Oh my goodness. I am walking away feeling so inspired. I just want to say thank you to each and every one of you here from Takeda's Impacto Employee Resource Group. The work that you all are doing is really important in supporting patients, having a perspective that's both global but then also local. I mean, you all are doing amazing work, and I cannot thank you enough for sharing your perspectives today. Students, we are here at the end of our STEM conversation. As you know, these sessions will continue on for the rest of the season, so please tap into future sessions. But I honestly hope that you found some value here. I know I walked away feeling inspired. If you have any questions or would like to be connected to anyone from Takeda following this session, educators, you have my contact info, so please reach out to me, and I'm happy to connect folks with anyone here on the panel. But we're here at the end of our session. Thank you again so much for tuning in, and have a great rest of the evening, day, or morning.